Hello, good morning. Today's Thursday. Welcome to Good Morning Africa and welcome to the Newspaper Review segment. My name is Kwame Owusu Danso. As we've always been doing it from Monday to Friday, we're going to be discussing all the topical issues here on the show. And before I introduce my panelists, I would like to take you through the topics that we've tabled for our conversation this morning. Kenya court finds 2 guilty in Westgate Mall attack. That story is on page 5 of the Daily Graphic newspaper. Resist endorsing aspirants. Asante cautions partisan chiefs. Detaining infant nursing mom at Kotoka International Airport. Heartbreaking. Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. Imposters protest reversal of 50% benchmark value reduction. The business analyst. And finally, the arrest of the WhatsApp news editor, David Tameklo. We're going to be touching on all of these stories here on the show. But let me remind you, if you've not seen the ad already being played on Pan-African television, that today we have a public lecture. A public lecture which is themed The Life and Ideals of Ernesto Che Guevara, which will be led by the Cuban ambassador to Ghana, Pedro Luis Gonzalez, here at Pan-African television. The time is 4:30 p.m. prompt. So please, for those of you who have been calling me, I think I received about 2 calls yesterday of people asking me whether or not the public lecture is going to happen. Yes, it's going to happen today at the premises of Pan-African Television. Pan-African Television is located at Abelempe, 48 Swanika Street. So alternatively, if you have a Google map on your phone, you can simply punch in Pan-African Television and it will bring you right here. Make sure you join us today. Let's learn a little bit more about Ernesto Che Guevara, what he stood for, his ideals, and the struggles that he was engaged in, and how those struggles can shape our struggles today. So make sure you join us today at Pan-African Television at exactly 4:30 p.m. Also, I'm sure that you want to know a lot more about Ghana in the wake of all of these historical distortions. You want to know exactly what occasioned our independence struggle and exactly what the people who led the struggle went through in order to achieve that particular independence for us. So if you want to understand Ghana's struggle for the independence and ideas which propelled that particular struggle, Osadifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah has written 13 books in that regard. All of these books are available at the Freedom Bookshop. Freedom Bookshop is located near the Apollo Theatre around the Kwame Nkrumah interchange. And if you want to call for a copy of the book or all the books, make sure you call the bookshop on 0271 818182. I repeat, 0271 818182 for any and all of the books written by Osadifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And like we say, our history is definitely a path to our future. We need to learn a lot more about our history. I'm privileged and excited to have in the studios with us Honorable Inusa Fuseni here seated and Mr. Kwesi Pratt. Good morning, sirs, and thank you very much for your time today. We're kickstarting the conversation from an African perspective where we travel to Kenya and learn what the court has been saying in respect of what transpired a few years back with regards to the Westgate Mall attack. Honorable, I want to respectfully start with you.
Well, yesterday, first of all, let me say good morning to you, my brother Kwesi Pratt, and your numerous viewers across the country and beyond. Yesterday, the Kenyan court came to the conclusion that 2 people out of 3 who were standing trial for conspiracy in the 2013 assault on the Westgate Mall, actually, were guilty of the offense of assisting the Al-Qaeda to carry out the bombings. Now, it's important for us to recap what happened. In about 2013, the terrorist group operating from Somalia, but with a base in Kenya, attacked the Westgate Mall and killed a number of people, about 67 in all, including our venerable Auno. The attack was so orchestrated that the attackers made it impossible for people who were in the mall to even escape. the attack started at the gates of the West Gate Mall, and then made it entrapped the people inside before they opened fire. They had also been able to infiltrate the mall and a guest house that was close by for the purposes of the assault. Now, most of the assailants were Somali refugees who were in Kenya at that time, and so they had, according to the court documents, they had assistance from some Somali refugees who were resident in Kenya. So 3 people were arrested and put on trial for the various roles they played in the attack. 2 were found guilty. I mean, evidence was proven against 2 of them. A 3rd one was acquitted and discharged. The evidence shows that his phone was used by one of the by his brother who died in the attack. His brother was part of the Al-Shabaab who died in the attack during the time of the planning of the attack, in communicating with others for the purposes of the attack. Now, this person who was acquitted successfully proved in court that yes, it was his phone, but he was using his phone with his brother. He shared the use of his phone with his brother, and that at no time did he contact Al-Shabaab. But his brother, who was also using his phone, used it for the purposes of contacting Al-Qaeda. The prosecution was not able to rebut the evidence that was produced by this person who was acquitted, that his evidence was disbelievable. I mean, he had raised reasonable doubts in the case against him that he did not collaborate with the terrorists for the purposes or lend any assistance to the terrorists to bomb the West Gate Mall. So he was acquitted. Also, one of the accused persons was charged with the possessing forged documents. He couldn't speak Swahili, but he had documents to the effect that he was a resident Somali in Kenya who possessed a resident permit to be able to be in Kenya. The court came to the conclusion that he did not, the documents were genuine. They came from the authorized department or institution of state and were issued by public officials of state. So he did not issue the documents to himself. So it is those who issued the documents to him who has a case to answer, because they must have been convinced that he's otherwise qualified to be resident in Kenya. So the court dismissed those charges against the person who was charged with possessing forged documents and concentrated on the assistance to the Al-Shabaab. It's also important that we comment on the fact that people should not engage in the commission of crime with impunity. People must pay or must be made to pay for their roles in committing crimes in society, no matter where they find themselves. Whether you are in Ghana or Kenya or anywhere in the world, if you are unnecessary before the fact to the commission of a crime, you must be made to pay. You must be held responsible. If we don't hold people responsible for their roles in the perpetration of crime, then we allow impunity to breed. And so that is why I commend the Kenyan authorities for the painstaking manner in which they went about the investigations and the identification of the 3 people who were put before court. I also think that there has been some level of transparency and accountability in the trial process by the fact that the court was able to, on the burden of proof, to prove that to hold the view that this prosecution was unable to prove a guilty intent of the 3rd accused person who was discharged from the court. Now, the punishments, they have been convicted of the offense. Now, it's left for the prosecution to now come to pray the court for the imposition of a sentence. And so the Kenyan chief prosecutor is saying that he will press for the maximum penalty, which is 20 years and more, to be visited on the accused persons. We want to see how the Kenyans will react to any plea by the chief prosecutor for the imposition of a deterrent sentence on the two convicted persons. I have no doubt that the Kenyan court will go a long way in passing a sentence which will send a clear signal to those who are thinking of engaging in acts that could destabilize the country or are offering assistance to the Al-Shabaab to continue to destabilize the Kenyan society or country, to be well advised that if they are caught, they will be dealt with drastically.
Thank you very much, Honorable Inus Afuseni. Let me kindly remind you that we're streaming live on our Facebook platform, which is Pan-African Television, and the WhatsApp number is also active, 0260846539. Mr. Pratt, please.
Well, this story is of particular relevance to Ghana because of the killing of Professor Kofi Awono in that attack. Professor Kofi Awono has served as chairman of the Council of State of Ghana. He had been a lecturer in both the University of Cape Coast and also the University of Ghana, and is a well-respected poet and writer. And his life had to come to an end in Kenya during the Westgate Mall attack. Now, significantly, it would appear that the terrorists operating in Somalia have active collaborators in Kenya. And they operate both within Kenya and Somalia and other bordering areas. Interestingly, the Forces Against Terrorism are also working across borders, and the Kenyan military has been playing a key part in the fight against Al-Shabaab in Somalia. Now, this emphasizes the point that we are no longer, encased in the small countries that the Europeans carved for us to serve their own interests, and that increasingly we are breaking out of the barriers which were set for us and beginning to see that our present and our future lies in working together. Now, for me, what is significant is that the Al-Shabaab attack needs not be considered as an isolated incident, given the fact that all of those terrorist organizations and so on are now affiliating with Al-Qaeda. So they are branches of Al-Qaeda, and they operate from Iraq to Syria to everywhere, to Somalia, to Kenya, and so on. In West Africa, we should be particularly worried because the activities are spread to Mali, to Guinea, to Burkina Faso, and they are continuing to spread. Indeed, what makes the situation in La Côte d'Ivoire exceedingly worrisome is that the misbehavior of Alassane Ouattara is likely to draw in some of these terrorist forces. And if they get to La Côte d'Ivoire and participate in the political process, we in Ghana would be at serious risk. You understand? And that is why, rather than praising Alassane Ouattara to the high heavens, which our government appears to be doing, our government should be talking to Alassane Ouattara to watch out and to behave properly. I mean, this is third term bid. It's totally repugnant. And he should be told so in no uncertain terms. Unfortunately, however, our government sees the government of Alassane Ouattara as an ally. And unfortunately for us also, our president, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has become the chairperson of ECOWAS in this very troubling times and so on. It's important also for us to look at the factors which allow the spread of these extremist groups and so on. One of the major factors is simply that most African governments are not present in their own rural communities. I mean, if you go visit many parts of Africa, you don't see any sign of government at all. There are no paved roads. Where there are paved roads, the roads are absolutely bad. Educational infrastructure is at best poor. You know, there's no presence of government. The delivery of potable water is a huge problem and so on. So all of these groups first present as humanitarian groups trying to help villagers and rural communities solve their problems. They are giving them pipe-borne water, they are paying for education and so on. And through that, they've managed to entrench in many parts of West Africa, and they pose a major threat to the peace and stability of West Africa, and even to the democratic, so-called democratic experiments that we are engaged in. And I'm getting increasingly worried about the spread of these extremist groups. It's also been established that these extremist groups are aligned to other groups that are, for example, engaged in the narcotic trade, and which are also engaged in piracy at sea and so on. So the picture is not a good one. And I'm wondering why it took 7 years, 7 long years, to pronounce judgment on those persons, only two of those, who perpetrated these heinous crimes at the Westgate Mall. From the account that we heard, the people who were involved in the attack could not be less than 50 to 100. And yet only 2 have stood trial and been convicted. That itself is a statement about the security services in Africa and their effectiveness and so on. You know, so we need to work hard, exceedingly hard, to ensure that these terrorist attacks are at least minimized or eradicated. And in Ghana, we ought to be exceedingly careful. Given what is happening in the so-called West Togoland, we ought to be extremely careful. As of now, my brother, I don't understand what is happening. The Homeland Study Group has claimed that it knows nothing about these so-called attacks. Government is blaming the Homeland Study Group. Some chiefs in the Volta region have come and they've said that we told the government that people were training here. They even refused to acknowledge our complaint and so on. Volta Region House of Chiefs invites ministers to discuss the issue. The ministers refuse to go on account that they are too busy and so on. The story is not adding up, you know. Some of the people who are arrested in the so-called training camps do not even come from anywhere in the Volta region, not to talk of the so-called Western Togoland. Some of them are people from Accra, some of them are people from Eastern region, and so on. The whole story is not adding up. And I think it's about time somebody began telling us the truth about what is happening. Again, you see, for example, that some of the attacks allegedly took place in Sogakope, Mepe and other places, which have never been part of German Togoland. You know, so that whole story is not adding up, even though it's a major threat to Ghanaian security. And it is also a problem for the upcoming elections, given the electoral dynamics in the Volta region and so on. It becomes a very, very important issue for our country. And the fight against terrorism generally on the African continent. You know, again, I think it's important for us to recognize that these so-called terrorist attacks provide a pretext for Western military and intelligence to come back to Africa and to establish a basis, you know, for strengthening the neo-colonial order. And some have even said that it could become a plank on which we retreat back into the era of classical colonialism. And I'm deeply worried. If you take Nigeria, for example, under Yar'Adua, Nigeria made a full commitment to resist the establishment of military bases, not only in Nigeria, but throughout Africa. As a result of the Boko Haram insurgency, and also a result of the low-intensity civil war in the Niger Delta and so on, the Western countries have re-established in Nigeria. They've sent soldiers, they've sent security advisors and so on. Nigeria is now inundated with Western security and military personnel who are not contributing anything, who have not been able to solve the problem. And it would appear that Western intelligence and security personnel are the sole beneficiaries of these Boko Haram attacks and so on. And I'm very deeply worried about the situation. On this occasion, perhaps we need to extend our condolences to the family of Professor Kofi Awono, who died, in this horrific, circumstances. So please accept our deepest condolences. May what happened to Professor Awono never happen to any African or any citizen of this world.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Pratt. We're coming back home to discuss some domestic issues here, and we will be touching on what Asantehene has been saying in respect of chiefs who are endorsing aspirants, and Asantehene is cautioning chiefs not to be partisan in their pronouncements. And Honorable Inus Hussein, again, I want to start with you on this subject matter.
Well, this matter of chiefs endorsing candidates, particularly presidential candidates, anytime they visit them at their palaces, have become a feature of Ghanaian politics. We have been condemning same since the inception of the Fourth Republic. It is for good reason that the Constitution insulates the chieftaincy institution from partisan politics. Because chiefs are for everybody. They sit on the throne by reason of their ancestors having been chiefs. And they step into the shoes of their ancestors to provide leadership and direction for the people they lead. So when a chief openly shows where he belongs on the political, if you want, in politics, then he opens himself to ridicule and abuse. The institution itself is supposed to be dignifying. And so, if a chief engages in partisan politics, that dignity that comes with the position is eroded. Now, and I don't think that we have reached a stage where we can dispense with the role of chiefs in society. So chiefs themselves must impose on them a duty to restrain themselves and their officers from making politically partisan statements anytime they are sitting in state. So I think the call by Otumfo Osei-Tutu, the Asantehene, is in the right direction. Now, what we see lately is chiefs falling over themselves to praise or endorse presidential aspirants. Clearly, that is an aberration. That cannot be accepted. Chiefs have a way of talking. And even when you listen to Asantehene in addressing Nana Akufo-Addo, that was a classical statement of a chief cautioning a presidential candidate in a way that you need to read deeper before you get the meaning of the caution. Yes, Go out there and show your works. And let the people see your works so that they can vote you into office. So if you are a political leader, it's cautioning. He don't say that I endorse you. You go out there, show your works. Show the people what you have done. This is what the Ashatini told Nana Akufo-Addo. After all, this election 2020 is going to be a contest on the track record of achievements of the two protagonists, the two major parties. So go out there and show your works. That cannot by any way be interpreted as an endorsement. Okay. As against other chiefs who have openly endorsed Nana Akufo-Addo or openly endorsed John Dramani Mahama. I think that the government said that when a chief engages in a haircut, it disturbs young men in the community. Because if a chief engages in a haircut, what will the young men do now? And so our chiefs should not engage in partisan politics. That doesn't mean to say that our chiefs have no right to vote. They have argued, some chiefs have argued, that because they have a right to vote, they should also have a right to indicate where they belong. Now, if a chief is not a chief, if you are a common person, nothing prevents you from showing where you belong on the political platform. I mean, on the political map. Nothing. I mean, if you are KOD, you should clearly show that for me I support this political party. But even KOD, you restrain yourself because you are a public figure. You are always in the public eye, and you host a program. So you don't want to be tagged with partiality. You want to be impartial in the delivery of this program. This also goes for chiefs. They need some neutrality and impartiality. You see, chiefs sit in their on stools or skins precisely to lead their people and to develop their communities. A chief's interest in politics must be definable.
Absolutely.
What is this party or what has this government done that I think should continue to inspire our people to support the party? What has this government done in my community that clearly gives me the confidence that if they are in power, my community will develop? Secretly, chiefs tell people, I'm a politician. They can call their people together and tell them, especially their advisors, the courtiers. Oh, I think that the way this party is going, if probably we lend support to the party, our problems as a people, as a community might be solved. But to openly declare that is a problem. And I will want to share in the Otunfo's exhortation to chiefs to stay out of politics, not debase the chieftaincy institution. This is the last institution that we have as a country that has the potential of unifying the people behind a common stool. And so if chiefs now begin to behave as if they are card-bearing members of political parties, it could pose a problem for the unity and stability of this country.
The question has been about the confusion in the Constitution.
There's no confusion.
Yeah, but I mean that's the argument that is being made, that Article 276 and 97 or so, it's not clear as to whether chiefs must, and the definition given there, active politics, and what is active politics.
Oh, the question you ask is, are you a chief? Are you a chief within the definition of the Constitution? Do you hail from the appropriate lineage of family? Okay.
Nominated, selected, elected.
Nominated, selected, and elected as a chief. So A chief is a person who, from the appropriate lineage or family, who has been nominated, selected, or elected to occupy a stool or a skin.
In accordance
with the traditional customs.
Yeah.
So, if you are such a person, you are banned from active politics, from party politics. Active politics is just party politics. That's all. Active politics is party politics. I mean, who says chiefs don't do politics? They do local politics. The chiefs installed sub-chiefs. Okay? So they select sub-chiefs. That's politics at the local level. Here, politics, active politics, mean partisan politics. Don't do partisan politics.
Thank you.
So it's very clear. I mean, I agree with my brother Kosepra. It's very clear. In fact, it's the chiefs themselves who, when they want to engage in partisan politics, say that the provision is not clear. Everybody knows that the provision is clear. And it's not, it has its antecedents in history, in the previous constitutions. So it's very clear.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt.
Well, a couple of days ago, I mean, the media was awash with claims by persons who are members of the New Patriotic Party leadership and surrogate that the Asante Hini had endorsed the sitting president 3 days ago, and that he had made a statement to the effect that the record of the president would justify his re-election. So this morning when I saw this headline, I was really surprised. I was shocked. The impression this gives is that the claims that the Asante had endorsed the sitting president were false. Because I want to believe the Asante. Because the Asante cannot be calling on other chiefs not to be endorsing candidates and endorsing candidates himself. So if he's calling on other chiefs to resist the temptation to endorse candidates, it means that he himself has not endorsed any candidate. And for me, that's an important dimension of this story. Just a few days ago, everywhere in the newspapers, on radio and television, we are being told that the Asante has finally endorsed the sitting president. Now this morning, the Asante is telling his colleagues not to endorse anybody. How can the Asante who is telling his colleagues not to endorse any presidential aspirant be endorsing the presidential aspirant himself? This is a riddle. And those who will try to solve this riddle, is up to them. As far as I'm concerned, this is the indication that the Asante has not endorsed President Mahama and has also not endorsed Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. In any case, in many places in this country, what does the endorsement of chiefs amount to? There's no guarantee that if a chief endorses a particular aspirant, all his so-called subjects will vote for that aspirant. There's no evidence to back that. I mean, I think that this is an exercise in delusion. You know, the political parties delude themselves that if they manage to corner some chiefs and make the chiefs fine and happy, and the chiefs endorse them, their people would also vote for them. It's a total delusion. It doesn't happen anywhere. I mean, I come from one of the most prominent towns in the central region. I'm supposed to be coming from Apam. You think that sitting here, the chief of Apam is the one who is going to tell me how to vote in an election? It won't happen. The chief of Apam is not the one to tell me how to vote in the elections. He may make all his noises, but I make up my own mind as to who to vote for. So I think that we also sometimes clearly overplay the influence of chiefs in our politics. It is not that pronounced. Yes, it may be true that in some places chiefs may have some influence based on their own standing in society, based on their own contributions to the advancement of their people and so on. Chiefs may have some clout. But I think we exaggerate that clout, we exaggerate that influence and so on. Now this takes us back to the constitutional provision, which is clear that chiefs should not engage in partisan politics. I think we can substitute active with partisan politics. Now, that constitutional provision, I followed the deliberations of the Constituent Assembly. And it is clear that that provision was intended to protect the chiefs themselves. That provision was meant to ensure that chiefs did not get into the tangle of multi-party democracy. And it's based on the fact that you cannot assume that all the people of APAM can support one political party. So if a chief in APAM is seen to be supporting one particular party, what happens if the other side who does not support that political party begins to initiate moves to get rid of the chief? The turmoil it brings to the chieftaincy institution is not healthy for the institution. I don't mind if there's turmoil in the chieftaincy institution, but some do care. I don't care. I believe in the principle of the equality of citizenship. You understand? So every citizen, no matter what bloodline you come from, must have equal rights and so on. That's my belief. And that belief clearly is not in tune with the chieftaincy institution and so on. But the Constitution was meant to protect them. Unfortunately, all the chiefs have jumped into the fray, or at least most of them have jumped into the fray. And sometimes it becomes very embarrassing, for them. Because they also play other roles. Their chiefs were in the judiciary. You understand? Yeah. So if our chiefs, they go declaring support for candidates, what does that happen to the principle of judicial independence? What does that do to the principle of judicial independence? And we've had a couple of cases, to deal with. That principle goes beyond the chieftaincy institution. Parliament, by definition, is supposed to have oversight over the work of the executive. The principle we apply in Ghana is the principle of separation of powers. So the judiciary is a totally independent body, the executive is an independent body, and Parliament is also an independent body. Now, if you look at the history of our Parliament, indeed from 1992, you would find that various speakers of Parliament have been trying to establish a certain tradition. And I recall Mr. Peter Adjeti made strenuous efforts, even though he was known to be a former chairman of the New Patriotic Party, he made strenuous efforts as Speaker to appear neutral. I don't see how Mr. Peter Adjeti would have accepted an invitation to represent the president at a certain function. It would never have happened. Once he became Speaker, his MPP-ness and so on was kept in the background. Everybody knows Honorable Do Ajahu to have been a leading member of the National Democratic Congress. In fact, he was representing the National Democratic Congress in Parliament and had held several positions in the party and so on. Once he became Speaker, he was conscious of the need to remain neutral, or at least to portray himself as not being directly and openly partisan. You cannot say this about the current Speaker of Parliament. The current Speaker of Parliament is openly, blatantly partisan. In front of me is the daily graphic of today, page 19. The Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Mike Okoye, has called for unity among executive members of the New Patriotic Party in the Korle-Klote constituency to enable the party win the seat in this year's election. This should not be coming from a Speaker of Parliament. I'm not saying that the Speaker of Parliament should not belong to a political party. Our history, recent history, shows that they all come from political parties, apart from Justice Bradford Addo, whose political party allegiance was not that clear. All speakers have been associated with political parties, but once they become speakers, they don't engage in this kind of talk. You understand? So whilst calling on speakers, on chiefs, to refrain from endorsing candidates and so on, I think we should be talking to other categories of public servants about the implications of their open partisanship. And I mean open, direct, and blatant partisanship. Look, I can foresee a situation where one day we will have a Chief Justice who has been a member of a political party before. Indeed, if you look at the Supreme Court now, you find Justice Kwame, and Justice Kwame was General Secretary of PNC. One day, it is possible that Justice Kwame will become the Chief Justice of Ghana. The possibility exists. If Justice Kwame became the Chief Justice of Ghana, I'll be very surprised if as Chief Justice of Ghana he will go around telling people to vote for PNC. He is political. You understand? He comes from the PNC and so on. Once he gets onto the Supreme Court, he is stopped from making those kinds of statements. Even today, Justice Kwame cannot publicly go out and call on people to vote for PNC. So if that is the case, why would the Speaker of Parliament be making these statements? When indeed the separation of powers applies to the Supreme Court or to the judiciary in much the same way that it applies to Parliament. You know, sometimes we all feel scandalized about some of the things that our elders do. And I want to urge all of us to take a cue from what the Asantini is saying. It may be useful for a fledgling democracy. And Asantini should not just be seen to be talking to chiefs, but to be talking to people in the legislature and people also in the judiciary and other people holding public service appointments. I mean, these days, you read the newspapers and people who are still at post in the public service appointees are out there in the field campaigning. What is happening to our society? Director of so and so, and he's out there campaigning. You know, even to the extent that police vehicles are being used for campaign, for clear partisan campaign, police vehicles. Even to the extent that military personnel in uniform are sometimes spotted making statements which border on campaigning. I'm getting increasingly scandalized. It's okay, let's leave it here.
Well, thank you. Your views can be shared with us via our WhatsApp and text number, which is 0260846539. And we're also streaming live on Facebook, facebook.com/Pan-African Television. Let me just go for this quick commercial break. When I come back, we'll be touching on that very disturbing story, or rather video, that was circulating around on social media, which has to do with the mother and the infant baby who were kept at Kotoka International Airport for their inability to pay the $150 COVID-19 test. So we shall discuss that shortly. Stay with us. Don't move with myself.
Breakfast good day, every day.
Nestle. Good food, good life.
This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Breakfast good day, every day. Every day.
Nestle.
It's the anti-imperialist week of struggle.
Hello there. The Socialist Forum of Ghana, SFG, will join progressive forces around the world to celebrate the Anti-Imperialist Week of Struggle from Monday, the 5th of October, to Saturday, the 10th of October, 2020. The week will kickstart with poetry recitals of a musical concert at the studios of Pan-African Television in Abelenkwe on Monday, the 5th of October at 6 p.m., featuring the Freedom Band and renowned poet Oswald Okaite. On Wednesday, the 7th of October, a television discussion on the theme Manifestation of Imperialism in West Africa will be led by Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr., member of the Standing Committee of the Socialist Forum of Ghana, from 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. And on Thursday, the 8th of October 2020, His Excellency Pedro Luis Gonzalez, the Cuban ambassador to Ghana, will be speaking on the topic, the life and ideals of Ernesto Che Guevara, at a public forum on the premises of Pan-African Television at exactly 4:30 p.m. All comrades and the general public are cordially invited. Anti-Imperialist Week of Struggle. Welcome back. Thank you very kindly for staying tuned into Pan-African Television. We're still discussing some very important issues here on the morning show. But before we get into the next topic, I want to remind you again that today at 4:30 p.m. here at the premises of Pan-African Television, we'll be having a public lecture which is themed The Life and Ideals of Ernesto Che Guevara. And the speaker is the Cuban ambassador to Ghana, His Excellency Pedro Luis Gonzalez, and he will be speaking to us, like I stated earlier, on the ideals, the life and ideals of Ernesto Che Guevara. So please, you are all invited to join us this evening at 4:30 p.m. at the premises of Pan-African Television. Like I told you before, if you don't know Pan-African Television, you can simply just punch the name into your Google map and it will bring you here. Alternatively, we are in Abelenkwe, 48 Shwanika Street here in Accra. Honorable, again, I'm sure you've seen that video.
Yes. Oh, there is more to the
video,
the video than meet the eye. I've seen the video. I actually was traveling to Tamale on Friday last week, and at the airport, I was stopped and briefed by one of the immigration officers who told me that what was happening at the airport, and that is Terminal 2, was appalling. Now, but the whole matter has its genesis in the rip-off of Ghanaians or travelers to Ghana by the policy of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Now, Nana Akufo-Addo announced in one of his broadcasts to the nation on COVID-19 that he was in the process of lifting the ban on traveling, and that passengers who intended to travel to Ghana had to show at their point of embarkation a valid COVID-19 test before climbing onto the aircraft. And that when they arrived in Ghana, they also had to undergo a test. Now that is the beginning of the problem. Now, immediately, Nana Akufo-Addo announced that a company came into being, Frontier Health Services. Frontier Health Services was incorporated about 2 weeks before the announcement was made. So the Frontier Health Services was incorporated in anticipation. If you want, it was a clear case of inside dealing. Frontier Health Services came into being because they knew that President Nana Akufo-Addo will announce that the borders will be open and allow for aircrafts to come into this country. And they also knew that there will be a requirement of testing. Frontier Health Services has no approved or certified laboratory for the purposes of undertaking the test. You know what? They are relying on the my this thing is that.
Sorry.
It doesn't matter if it's not. It's still,
You can, yeah. Okay.
They are relying on.
Push the knob right on it. Right. That's it. Yes.
They are relying on the Noguchi Research Center for the purposes of the test. Now, and how does this come to the fore? And the Frontier Health Services itself has a lot of matters that ought to be answered. Look, Frontier Health Services is being owned by another company, Frontier Health Solutions. Now, that company is incorporated in Dominican Republic. And that company is a shell company. So you see clearly that there has been an attempt by this government, and I have said, and I've told the minority leadership in Parliament that we need to ask questions on how the contract for the testing of arriving passengers for COVID-19 at the Kotoka International Airport was awarded. It's important that we know, because this company has clearly no staff, no laboratory, nothing, and they are doing the test at the Kotoka, and they are using the state institution, state officers for the purposes of the testing. They are using nurses who are paid by the state, and they are using the laboratory of Noguchi Research Center for the testing. Meanwhile, they are charging $150, the third highest in Africa. Now, so people arrive, they are unable to to cough out $150 for the purposes of testing. They are detained at the airport, that is Terminal 3. They are initially detained at Terminal 3 and subsequently moved to Terminal 2. There is no holding facility arranged as part of the efforts of government to deal with those class of people who will arrive and who will be unable to pay for their testing. There is no arrangement for that. There is also no arrangement for a holding place for such people to be kept until they are able to be tested and allowed to integrate in society, to go about their businesses if they prove negative or if they are tested negative. Now, when they are moved from Terminal 3 to Terminal 2, they come into contact with other users of Terminal 2. Now, so these people are not tested because they have been unable to pay the $150.
Yeah.
They are moved from Terminal 3 to Terminal 2, and in Terminal 2, they come into contact with passengers who are using that terminal for domestic travel. Serious matter. The matter came to a head when travelers, Ghanaians, arrived back in this country with a 1-year-old baby. The mother, the baby, and some other sick passengers were unable to pay the $150. And if you don't pay the $150, you don't get to leave the airport, because you must be tested before you leave the airport. And so the mother, the 1-year-old baby, the mother, and the sick passengers were detained at the airport. And that was why they did the video, to ask for help. Now ask, it's not immoral. It's not immoral. Is government not reneging on its responsibilities to the citizens of this country? When some citizens arrive here and they are unable to pay, is it not just right and proper that government puts in place a social mechanism? They like social intervention. It's a mechanism that will allow for such people to be tested in order to get into to leave the airport. Because the longer you keep them without testing them, you expose other users of the premises to potential infections from the passengers. And I just think that it is just sheer wickedness, lack of sensitivity on the part of government to continue to detain people, and particularly children who arrive in this country, or infants, without the ability to pay. Now, the mother and the infant would have paid $300 to be tested. Where are they coming from? Do they have the money? And it doesn't matter. Look, the thing is so ridiculous that when you are leaving Ghana for Nigeria and you test in Ghana and you arrive in Nigeria with your test certificate, you are not subjected to another test in Nigeria. Because if the test is less than 10 days old, even if the person is carrying the virus, the virus will not manifest itself
Until 14 days.
until 14 days. Now, so it doesn't make sense that a person travels from Europe or from West Africa, any of the West African countries with a valid test certificate, arrives in Ghana a day or two after the test has been done on that person, and you are asking that person to subject himself again to a test. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Now that is why in Nigeria, if you arrive in Nigeria with a valid test certificate from Ghana, you are shown approved government facilities where you can do a test when you are leaving the country. Now, again, people leave Ghana, do the test, $150, get to Nigeria or Senegal, a day after or 2 days after, they are coming back to Ghana and they have to do the test again.
Yeah.
So within a week, you will have done the test twice when the disease will not yet show any symptoms. When the infection, the infection might not yet have been established. When if a person is infected, the disease will still be in the incubation period. And so all this arrangement, my brother, is just, and we are still following up on the Frontier Health Services story. Indeed, as I speak to you, because Frontier Health Services is being owned by another company registered in the Dominican Republic, I have, and Ghana's law require a person who is holding beneficial interest in a company to be known. A company cannot hold a beneficial interest. It's an individual. A company holds shares. But who are those persons who hold the beneficial interest in the shares? Ghanaians need to know. Ghanaians need to know. We won't allow the Nana Akufo-Addo's government to continue to hide behind tax savings and shell companies to continue to rip off this country. So I'm preparing a request to the Registrar General to ask for the beneficial owners of Frontier Health Services, because they're just taking money. They're just taking the money for free. They are using Noguchi. They are using our health personnel. Noguchi, they are paying them $3. $3. for every test, $3. So, in fact, there is more on this COVID-19, and that is what I'm specializing for the last 3 months of my stay in Parliament. The rot in COVID-19, the use of COVID-19 funds is mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. Do you know that even the insurance of the frontline personnel was given to enterprise insurance? The 10 million that was paid to enterprise insurance. What kind of family and friends government is this? Why? So, in this country, if you don't come from the eastern region, and Kenya, Master, you've heard of the Kenyan story. How people have had to be arrested because of the way they pilfered funds from COVID-19. So clearly there are issues, but government has a responsibility to ensure that people who arrive in this country without any means of paying for the testing to be tested and allowed to integrate in society. In fact, if it doesn't, you don't need Frontier Health Services to test those people. If they can be tested by government, should take up the responsibility and get our hospitals and medical facilities to test those people to allow them to integrate.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Mr. Pratt.
Well, I was horrified when I saw the videos from the airport, from Terminal 2 of the airport. There were videos of women actually looking haggard, who had already traveled into the country, were suffering from the stress of air travel and so on, and with their babies, innocent babies, lying on those aluminum chairs at Terminal 2. And it was heartbreaking. In fact, somebody else said heart-wrenching. To see this women and their innocent babies go through that. As a matter of fact, the holding of people as hostages for medical reasons is frowned upon everywhere in the world. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're holding them hostage. If they can't find $150, then they must stay in the airport, Terminal 2. And we haven't even provided facilities which make the existence or their presence in Terminal 2 of the airport humane. It's a huge scandal. What is happening at the airport is a huge scandal. And it's a scandal if you also consider the fact that some countries are charging as low as $28 for the same test. So if some countries are charging $28 for the same test, why are we charging $150 for the same test? Indeed, when this matter became a big issue, we compared ourselves, I think, to Benin and said Benin was charging in excess of $150. As a result of public protest, Benin has slashed the cost of their charges to $90. Why are we still charging $150? We want to use the fight against COVID-19 also as a revenue mobilizer. Then we should be pumping money into the fight against COVID-19. It's so scandalous. I read the statement issued by Professor Nana Jane Opoku Ajimai. I agree with her. I agree with her. Listen, if you go to our hospitals, you will weep. And yesterday, one of the medical practitioners issued a statement to that effect. We are told that delivery, pregnant women when they go to delivery is free. That is what we have been told, that there's a fund to cover that and so on. We have applauded government for it and so on. And yet, pregnant women who go to hospital to deliver, who cannot pay their bills, are detained. And yesterday, I was told of a case of a woman who was detained for 45 days. 45 days because she couldn't pay her bill. How inhuman can we be that a woman gives birth fresh, and you detain her for 45 days because she can't pay her bill? We must be a very inhuman society. Yesterday, I was also told of the story of one of the women who was detained at the Accra International Airport. Of course, you notice that I refuse to call it Kutuka. Accra International Airport. This woman arrived with 3 children who are above a certain age, I think age of 5 or so. So she was required to pay $600 for a COVID test. $600 for many Ghanaians is their yearly salary. The whole year. That's how much they earn. There are Ghanaians who earn 300 cedis a month. There are Ghanaians who earn 500 cedis a month. If you earn 500 cedis a month, it must be a decent salary for some categories of workers and so on. You understand? And you are charging $600. If you multiply it by 6, that is 3,600 to do COVID test. And when the people cannot afford it, you detain them. In circumstances where other countries are charging $28 for the same test, what kind of a country are we? I mean, this is embarrassing, you know. And then the worst thing is what Alhaji Inusa Fuseni has already described. These are people who have not been tested. These are people who are flying into the country. There's a possibility that some of them may have COVID. And then you move them to Terminal 2 to mingle with domestic travelers. If this is not crazy, what can be crazy? Completely crazy. You know, are we really fighting COVID? When we take people that we suspect may have it and mingle them with domestic travelers, something is seriously wrong, you know, and I'm hoping. I mean, yesterday I had the opportunity of chatting with Dr. Okoboy, who happens to be the Deputy Minister of Health, and who is also a very, very influential and active member of the government's COVID-19 team. I do hope that they will do something about it, or they've done something about it, because this is thoroughly embarrassing.
Well, thank you, Mr. Pratt. We still have a few minutes to go, and the last topic that we're going to be touching on has to do with the arrest of the news editor for WhatsApp newspaper, David Tamaklo. Honorable.
Well, this
you were livid, eh?
well, I've been living since morning. What is the crime of David Tamaklo? The NDC in the eastern region did a press statement in which they accused the security agencies and some members of the MPP and the EC of a calculated attempt at ostracizing some minority groups in New Edibiase, particularly groups of northern extraction and awards. WhatsApp News, editor-in-chief David Tamaklo picks up the story and publishes it on WhatsApp. And that's an offense. That's an offense. This can only be an offense under Nana Akufo-Addo's administration. And I'm scandalized because it is Nana Akufo-Addo who, as foreign minister, went to parliament to move a motion for the repeal of the criminal libel law. Criminal libel law. Now, someone exercises his fundamental right to freedom of expression. He says that, look, we are observing a trend in New Edibiase. People of minority ethnic groups and awards. And I read subsequently that when even the minority ethnic groups were allowed to register, they paraded themselves. I don't know whether you saw the picture. They paraded themselves and said, oh, now we have been allowed to register, confirming the press statement that was issued by the NDC in New Edibiase. The crime of David Tamaklo is simply that he made it permanent. He printed it. That story, he printed it on WhatsApp. I don't know who sent the matter to court in New York, and the circuit court then issued a bench warrant. I mean, invited him to come to court. For what offense? Publicizing what? The press statement? Or what? I don't know. This is democratic Ghana, in which the civil liberties and rights of persons are to be respected. Someone exercises his freedom of speech, gives permanency to an accusation leveled against the security agencies, electoral commission, and some members of the MPP who were bent on ostracizing, excluding minority groups from registering during the voter registration. It was across the country. And they say he's committed a crime, and for which a bench warrant has been issued. This is crazy. That means we should not be talking now. Maybe Asante Katia should be worried because he's made similar accusations. Maybe he should be worried. He has said that we shouldn't exercise our freedom of expression. We shouldn't speak. But it's a fundamental right. It's a very fundamental. It's a right which is paramount. It's a paramount right in any democracy. And we are not in a dictatorship or whatever. Or maybe this is a constitutional dictatorship. That when you cough, they ask you the meaning of the cough. If you are unable to explain, then they arrest you. If not, why will security men ask people qu'est-ce que c'est? And if you answer, you are in trouble. As if we were not taught French in secondary schools. This is the thing. Today as I speak, and I'm saying that they can come and arrest me. Voter regime people are complaining that they have packed that place with military men. And they are afraid that the real intent is to intimidate them during voting. They say they are apprehensive. They are afraid that the real intent of government sending military to the voter region is to intimidate them during voting. But we see, when people, no government can stand against a determined people to change that government. No government. Gaddafi would have still been in power. Gaddafi would have still been in power. And so, no matter what they do, no matter the levels of intimidation, fear, and panic being created, the people of Ghana are determined to do what is right and proper to change this obnoxious regime of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
Thank you very, very much. Mr. Pratt, please take us home.
Again, you know, I've read the story and I'm just wondering the basis of the arrest. These are things that have actually happened. We've seen the videos. In one instance, I saw a chief in one village actually confronting electoral officials and insisting that those villagers, even though they are originally Ewe, have stayed there for more than 100 years and are entitled to vote and so on. Now, if a journalist published this, why would you arrest the journalist? I can't understand. And you see, what is worse is the mode of arrests. David Tamaklo was not arrested by policemen from Accra. This policeman came all the way from New Edubiasi in the night.
Never done.
This is not somebody who is escaping from justice. This is somebody who could have taken the phone and called and said, come to New Edubiasi, and he would have come to New Edubiasi. But policemen arrived from New Edubiasi in the night. They actually block the part of his car. He's driving in the night, they block him and insist on dragging him to New Edubiasi. How is he to know that those people in police uniform are actually policemen? Why this trauma?
Yeah.
And then after some persistence, he's taken to Tesano police station. The lawyers come, they still insist on driving him through the night to New Edubiasi. What is this behavior from policemen? What is this rubbish? You know, and the IGP, is he aware of all of these things?
He's aware.
Is the IGP aware of all these things?
He's aware.
Well, what is happening in our country? You know, I mean, this must stop. Today, the Daily Post has published exactly what he published for which he was arrested. They should go for Daily Post too. They should go for the staff of Daily Post. And if they go for the staff of Daily Post, other newspapers will start publishing the same thing. And let's see how many journalists they can arrest. What is this rubbish? And I'm expecting the Ghana Journalists Association to come out with a very strong statement of condemnation. We cannot tolerate this. Not in 2020.
What offense has
Not in 2020. If these things were happening in the 1980s, fine. Not in 2020. This impunity must come to an end. What is this? And what is the basis of the bench warrant?
Yeah.
You issue a bench warrant when somebody refuses to answer to summons, when somebody is on the run and so on. The person is not on the run, has not refused to respond to summons and so on. Then you issue a bench warrant for his arrest, and he's arrested in the night or in the middle of the road and so on. What is this behavior? What is this behavior? Who can justify this behavior? Look, the Ghanaian authorities must begin to understand one thing. We did not have the current dispensation out of cowardice. We fought, we took risks, we went to prison, people died for us to have the current dispensation. And we are not going to sit down idle to allow people to take us back to the days of culture of silence. It will not happen. They must understand in clear language that there are so many Ghanaians who are not afraid of arrest and detention. That there are so many Ghanaians who are ready to risk everything in order to ensure that we live in a modern and decent society. There are so many Ghanaians who will not allow this country to slide back into a banana republic. It will not happen.
But when injustice becomes a rule, resistance becomes a duty.
Okay. Wow. Please, there's a video of okay, this video has nothing to do with what we are discussing. This one says sad Ghana. Lamenting Joe sent in, I am really enjoying the morning show, keep it up. This one says, good morning, my unequivocal champion KOD, and to my two revered mentors. Indeed, listening to Uncle Pratt, I'm always overwhelmed and inspired. He has succinctly said it all. In the annals of our democratical dispensation, it's only in this Akufo-Addo's regime that almost all non-partisan institutions we revere. Okay. Truly, this nation needs to be rescued from all forms of backwardness. Mujib Ronaldo, Great Tatachiman sent in this one. Good morning to Pan-African Television. In fact, you are doing a great job by educating Ghanaians. I'm Emmanuel Prof from Akamade. This one says, good morning to you, all panelists. Unfortunately, that Ghana is this way today. It shows clearly that Ghanaian citizens are being undermined. COVID testing for an average Ghanaian who can't afford the prices detained at the airport is very criminal. Ghana is totally a failed state. Well, not completely, sir. There's always a way. Sometimes the MPs also don't do anything. BT Sly also says Nanado's first election supervised was the Ayawasu by-election. Okay, it's unrelated. Good morning to KOD. KP always says the truth to the people of Ghana. Please, I need to see him one day. Good morning to you, KOD. Please, why is the MPP member not sure? Why is well, we tried, we didn't get any of them. My time is up. Let me remind you for the last time on this show that at 4:30 p.m. today, there's going to be a public lecture. Oh, no, I hope you are coming. 4:30. Yes, we need to see you. Thank you very much. So the speaker is Pedro Luis Gonzalez, and the theme is the life and ideals of Ernesto Che Guevara. It's happening today at 4:30 p.m. exactly at the premises of Pan-African Television, which is in Abelinkwe, 48 Swanika Street. Alternatively, if you are using the Google location, you can just punch it in Pan-African Television and press start. It will bring you here. And for those of you who have been calling me, I think this is a time for you to come, because I think I received calls 2 days ago asking me about this particular lecture. It's going to happen today. It's going to happen today. So please make your way to Pan-African Television today, and let's learn more about Ernesto Che Guevara. And for those of you who would want to learn more about Ghana, this is the time for you to visit the Freedom Bookshop, which is near the Apollo Theatre. If you want to purchase any book from Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, this is the time to do so. Call the Freedom Bookshop on 0271-818182 for any and all of the books written by Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Let me say a big thank you to Honorable Mr. Fuseni for your time, and thank you, Mr. Pratt. Thank you to you for watching today's edition of Good Morning Africa. My name is Kwame Owusu Danso. I'll see you guys when I see you. Bye-bye.